I'm sure we've all had our fair share of plant FOMO where suddenly we just have this uncontrollable urge to purchase this plant that we're seeing all over the gram, only to find out that once we finally got the plant that we have fallen for the hype. And it happens. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you guys. And then we realize it's not really worth the coin. It may not really be worth the stress of caring for it. And the leaves might not be giving the way we thought they would give. So we're going to talk about today a few plants that they're kind of hyped, but is it worth it? So let's find out. First plant that we're going to be talking about is the Anthurium luxurians. Ignore the gaping hole in my new leaf. I don't know how or why that happened, but it did. So this is my mom's Anthurium luxurians that she won. We didn't even have to pay for this coin. So we already know this is worth the hype because we didn't have to pay for it. But for real though, for people who have to pay for it, I'm gonna start off and say yes. It's even without a thought that this plant is worth the hype, because do you see the texture? Even with this gaping hole in the center, this plant is still amazing. First of all, let's acknowledge that this leaf is not fully hardened off and it can get bigger compared to the last leaf and compared to one of the original leaves. Like, oh my gosh. So besides the growth of this plant, obviously the hype of this plant is the texture, and I'm telling you, it's worth it. This texture is wild. Now there is the plant that is very similar to this, the radicans. So that I would say is a good dupe for this plant. However, the leaves are not going to be as dark. You're not getting this super dark leaf with the radicans. So if you're for the dark leaf, this is worth the splurge. And I'd have to look it up and see how much they are right now. I feel like the prices are coming down on it, and that's a whole nother like beast, the prices of plants. Speaking of the prices of plants, I did a collab with Lee from Kill This Plant, and I will put the link for that in the description. If you're watching this video, Lee, thank you for inviting me to be a part of your collab. He did extensive research into the cost of plants and how it goes up and down, which we all know that that's a thing. But for real, if you see a plant you really want, but the price is a little too high, just wait it out. It's always worth waiting it out. Anyways, back to this plant. This is a hard yes, for sure worth the hype. I would have to check how much it is. Would I have paid for it? Okay, the answer is hard to say, because hear me out. I thought that this plant was really difficult to care for. So if you would have asked me before I ever owned this plant, would I pay for this plant? I would have said no, because it's probably not worth the stress. But in all actuality, this is one of the easiest anthuriums I have. It is so easy, doesn't really need me. I have moss in here because it's in this type of container here, in plastic. Actually, I'll show you. It's in dirt. I repotted it into dirt. I didn't even put it into pond. And then, you know, anthuriums, I like to have my anthuriums at least in semi-hydro because they do very well. But this one, look at these roots. It's doing so well. The roots you can see everywhere. So it's a very easy plant. For an anthurium, it is super easy. It's not like your testy, velvety ones at all. Therefore, it is worth the stress because there is very little stress, and it's probably worth the coin because it's gorgeous and the leaves are giving. There's nothing lacking in these leaves. So yes, this plant is definitely worth the hype. I would say though, to still consider the radicans because it is a close dupe. It's just not as dark and sexy. So this next plant might upset some people. I'm not sure, because I'm not sure how hard people go for this plant. I just know that when I was new, it's a Hoya. When I was new to Hoyas, I just kept seeing this plant like everywhere for sale, or people were constantly in search of this plant, and it wasn't cheap for a long time. And then I finally got one because the price came down. Still not down enough. It is currently one of my most expensive Hoyas, and that is the Hoya Wilbur Graves. Now, it could be the one that I have. That's the other thing about this. There are different Hoya Wilbur Graves from different countries. This one, if you can see on the tag, you probably can't, is a no ID. So I guess they don't know which country it came from. The one from Russia, I think, is the one that people really, really like. But overall, I'm gonna say it's not worth the hype. And I don't, it's not because it's not pretty. The leaves are giving. I just don't think it's giving for the coin. This was $50 and it came with these two lower leaves, and then this one was emerging. So I have a Crassiopetalata splash coming, and not in the mail, but to say in the mail, but I'm gonna pick it up tomorrow, and it looks better than this. And that was $40. So I don't think it's worth the hype. I just don't. It's my opinion. You might feel differently. Let me know in the comments below. But I just don't think it's worth the hype. It is pretty. It's splashy. I love a splashy Hoya. The splash is sun stressing to a pink, which again is pretty. But I just don't think. There's a lot of splashy Hoyas, and so I don't think this one. Maybe it's mine. Maybe I need to have the Russia one, and that one is maybe worth the hype. But this one that I have, if it's not the Russia, it's not worth the hype. And I could be wrong, because there's one from China that's really pretty too. Whichever one I'm really talking about, I'm gonna put it on the screen. And there's another, and that's another reason. There's another Hoya, the Mathilde Splash, that is from Russia as well, I believe. That one, the splash on that one, I just, there are other beautiful splashy Hoyas, so, and I think it's the shape of this one that's throwing me, and that's why I just don't feel like it's worth the hype. I was a little pressed to get it, and I got it, and I was like, like I looked at it for the first couple of days, and I thought it was really pretty for the first couple of days. I do still think it's pretty, but I'm not like, oh my God, I gotta see what this is looking like. I'll be looking at it like, you better be growing because you cost me $50. You know what I mean? So this next plant is definitely a classic, and you really can't talk about popular plants without talking about this plant, and that is the MONSTERA ALBO. And I struggled with this one, not for why you may think. I struggled with this one because I wanted to say no. I wanted to say it's not worth the hype, but I can't. I'd be lying, and I'm not going to do that to y'all. This plant is worth the hype. And I only changed my mind, to be honest, when this leaf came out. Before this leaf, I was like, it's cute, but I don't know if it is. It's worth the hype. I'm sorry. And you know why too? Because I don't really want to be somebody that contributes to the hype, especially if it is just hype. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to contribute to people feeling a little pressured that they need a certain or have to have a certain plant, because I don't like feeling that way. But I'm sorry. This plant speaks for itself. It is low-key worth the hype. So I got this as a one leaf cutting less than a year ago, and of course it was stressful. And that's the other thing too, is like, I felt like it's kind of sort of not worth the hype because of the stress. It is pretty stressful carrying Lulu. I'm sorry. It's sort of not worth the hype because of the stress, but then again, the foliage makes up for it, and there really just is no denying it. I got my first little fenestration, so cute. And it's interesting, when I got this as a one leaf cutting, the leaf was not this variegated. I would say only like a quarter of the leaf had a white patch. The stem had a decent amount of variegation, but it definitely was not as heavy as what you see here on this petio. So I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was gonna have I thought it was gonna be like this the whole time, a nice little splash, something cute and something light, which I was happy with. I was very happy with these lower leaves, and I really didn't care for it to be like, I didn't feel like I needed it to be any more variegated. And so as I got this leaf, I was like, oh, that's pretty. And then I got this one, I said, oh, it's doing something. I love the marbled, And then this one, I said, oh, it's just so pretty. And then I saw this one, I said, wow. Like, and then the little fenestration just topped it off, So it is, guys. The ALBO is definitely worth the hype. I don't want it to be true, but it is. And it's growing pretty well for me. I do water this plant a little differently than all my others. I absolutely need to put it on a pole. Like, it's literally so ready for a pole right now. is, okay, I'm gonna definitely try to put on a poll once this leaf hardens off because it needs it for sure. It's like perfectly ready for a poll. But I was saying I do water this a little bit differently. I do not really keep a water reservoir with this because I'm afraid of it just rotting away for no reason at all. So I only put the water really low, and then I only fill it when it's completely dry. Not when there's no water, when it physically looks dry. You can kind of tell if you've ever had leca or pond before. You can tell how it looks when it's dry inside, and that is when I water it, when it's completely dry. And it's been doing fine. The roots are doing very, very well. You can see some secondary roots popping off. Oh, on this side, secondary roots popping off. I'm very happy. So yeah, guys, the ALBO, if you don't have one, I'm not trying to pressure you to get one, seriously, because they're not cheap. I paid $110 for a 1-leaf cutting. It was rooted. It was a rooted cutting. I would have never, that's another thing. Don't take the chance of buying a plant like this or any expensive plant as a cutting with no roots, because it's already expensive and cuttings are already unpredictable. Sometimes you don't need the double whammy of losing an expensive cutting, you know, so don't do that to yourself. Don't stress yourself out like that. I got it as a rooted cutting for $110, so I knew there was some chance that it should be okay. And so this next one I kind of struggled with a bit. Like, I knew it was a popular plant that I needed to mention, but I was struggling with, is it or is it not worth the hype? And of course, my opinion is biased because of my experience with the plant, but I know that when I see others, I'm like, ooh, it is worth it. And so the plant is the Alocasia FRYDEK variegated. Is it called? I think it's FRYDEK, is it? The Michelesiana is the green one. The FRYDEK is the variegated one. I don't know. The point is the variegated one, not the green one. This is what I got. So when I say I was conflicted, I'm saying, like, clearly this is looking crazy. But the thing is this, and these plants are still pretty expensive. I got a corm, just a corm. I think it had maybe a few roots. It was not an established, I mean, if a corm is established, it probably has leaves by then, but the point is that it wasn't a plant, okay? It was just a corm, and it had no leaves, and it only had very little roots for $100. $100 I got this for. No, that's not worth it. That is not worth it, because guess what happened to me? The first 5 leaves, all white. And you know how stressed I was? Like, I just spent $100 on nothing. I thought I was gonna just completely lose this plant. And honestly, it's still at risk of me completely losing it because this leaf came out after this one. I was like, thank God I finally got some green on my leaves, but then this came out. So this is what I'm saying, okay? It's a beautiful plant, but it's not worth buying $100 corm for, even though they show you, you know, the mother plant and say, this is where it came from. So this is what you're probably gonna have. Keyword, probably, okay? So it's not worth that, okay? Don't do what I did. Buy you one that already has leaves, because you know what too? I did see some people were able to get like a medium to low variegated one. If you're okay with that and you like that foliage, then you'll probably get a way better price and it'll be worth it. For me, I want a medium, you know, not high, but a medium to moderate level of variegation. I want to see it like this, you know, not necessarily half white, because this is probably what will happen to it. But my point is that the ones that I have seen for a lower price, because they are medium to low variegation, I wouldn't purchase because it wasn't enough for me personally. But do your research, because you might find some that you do like, but don't do what I did. It is not worth risking $100 hairs, okay, on a corm. What is this? Fungus gnat. I haven't had those in a while. I don't know where that one came from. The point is, it's a beautiful plant and it's worth something, but it's not worth $100 corm. Editing Lauren here. I just wanted to pop in real quick because I got so overhyped talking about the decorum that I failed to mention the stress of care and also the foliage. From my short experience with it, it has not been fussy in any way. It's been pretty easy growing consistently. And then what I've seen other people express with their more mature forms, they express that it's really not much harder than the green form FRYDEK, and in fact it's probably easier care. And then of course, if you like variegated plants, this plant is definitely giving. I don't see too many people complaining about it reverting on them. So if you find a good specimen, it's definitely worth the coin, just not the corn. This next plant is a philodendron that I kind of feel is like the ALBO of the monsteras. Like it's always going to hold its value and it's kind of like a classic, but it's still kind of out of reach. And that is the SP Colombia. So this again is kind of mixed. I'm going to start off with saying overall, yes, this plant is worth the hype because look at this pillowiness. The foliage is giving so much and it's an easy plant. Like I haven't had any dramatics with this plant. It put out this leaf relatively soon after me purchasing it. I transferred it to LECA with no major issues. So it's not crazy care-wise. The price is moderate, like mid double digits, so that's not bad either. And the leaves are giving. However, this one is from Ecuagenera. And the one from Tropicals is on another level. So what I'm gonna say is that this one from Ecuagenera is not worth the hype. But if you really want an SP Colombia and you've never had one before, order it from Tropicals. And I'm not just saying that because I love Tropicals. I'm saying because they actually have a different variation where theirs is so dark. And I don't think they call it, I think there is like an SP Platinum or something like that. I don't even think they call it that. I don't know what they call it, but it don't look like this one. This one's beautiful because it has the contrasting of the light green with the dark green. I'm gonna put it on a screen because you're not gonna really know what I'm saying until you see it. And even then, seeing it in person, I went to the Tropicals plant pop-up shop a couple months ago, and they had an SP Colombia. And why I listened to my mom and she tried to reason with me as to why I shouldn't get the plant because I already have one similar. It's not the same. It's similar, but it's not the same. Okay, and so hear me when I say this one is nice, but the one from Tropicals is the one you really want because it's just different. It's really dark and different. Unless you like the lighter green, then go with this one. But overall, an SP Colombia is for sure worth the hype because like I said, it's very easy care. The foliage is giving and the price is moderate. It's also a crawler. So I feel like crawlers are more easy care than climbers. Yes, you may need to get a proper pot for it, but you don't have to be keeping no moss moist. You don't have to be strapping it down and doing all this other stuff. Like, it's worth the hype. The SP Colombia is definitely worth the hype. Now, I had some other plants that I had in mind, but the thing is that I don't have them in my collection. And they're plants that I kind of feel are popular and hyped, but I don't have them to show. I wanted to have a plant to show you guys, and I felt like I couldn't truly say whether something was worth the hype if I didn't have it in my collection on my own to actually care for it. But here we are. The first one I was thinking of that I don't feel is worth the hype is the MONSTERA ADONSONII variegated, or the mint one, or whatever variation of a variegated ADONSONII there is. I just don't think the foliage is giving. The price has come down a lot, like a whole lot. So it's not really the price to me that's not worth the hype. It's the foliage to me that's not worth the hype. I just don't like the variegation on top of all of that fenestration. Like it's very holy, like it has a lot of holes. And so what are we variegating? Like this kind of patchwork variegation, the foliage isn't giving to me, so I just don't think it's worth the hype. Care-wise, I think that people don't really have issues with growing it, but sizing it up and making it full. I've seen people complain about runners and it not sizing up and all of that stuff. So that you would have to kind of figure out for yourself, but foliage-wise, it's just not doing it for me. One other plant that I don't have in my collection, but I'm don't really feel like it's worth the hype, and I won't spend too much time on it because I feel like it gets talked about a lot. That is the MONSTERA Thai constellation. And for many reasons, you know, of it spontaneously combusting into rot, or what have you. Pretty much for me, that's the sole reason why I won't. It's not like I won't purchase it. That's not true. It's not that I won't purchase it. I won't spend a coin for it. So if it comes to me at a offer that I cannot refuse, like mid double digits, I would purchase it. But if we're still talking 3 digits, you know, high double digits, and I'm over $50 for me is a risk. You know, under $50, I don't mind risking, but over $50 and it might spontaneously combust into rot? No, I can't do it. I just can't do it. It's beautiful. The foliage is giving. And it's funny, very early on in my plant journey, I really wanted the Thai constellation. I was not caring for the ALBO. I wasn't checking for it. I saw it, but said, no, I want the Thai con. And then every time I kept searching for the Tycon and I kept seeing that goddamn price, I just couldn't do it. I just could not do it. And then I started, you know, seeing other people's experience with it, and I was like, am I missing anything? Like, am I missing out on anything? I'm not sure. And again, please don't get me wrong. Don't think that I don't like the plant or that I don't think it's beautiful. I absolutely do. I just can't see myself purchasing it at this time because for me, it's not worth the hype. So this last plant I debated. I really debated about putting it in, but in the spirit of being open and honest with you guys, this is the plant that I myself was so hyped for. So I hyped this plant up, and now after having it, I don't know if it was worth my hype. Like, I was so pressed for this plant. And again, please don't think that I don't like the plant. It's just not what I expected it to be or what I thought it would be upon first acquiring the plant. I was going to say achieving. And I'm sad. I am sad that I don't love it more because I really want to love it more. The plant that I'm talking about is my big ol' HOMALOMENA pink variegated. Can you tell why it's not worth the hype for me? Pink where? Variegation where? Like, pink variegated or variegated where? It's very little variegation. And I don't know, this could be me. It could be my fault because if you notice, these lower leaves have a lot more variegation. These lower leaves have variegation, but all these middle leaves are the ones that came out in my care, and there's little to no variegation. It's growing like a beast. Like, it is a very happy, healthy plant, but the leaves, and it's very easy to care for. It's very easy to care for, but the leaves are not giving what I thought they would give. So I'm gonna put it down because I can't hold that the whole time. I thought about trying to move it into my sunroom because it will get a lot more light there. Granted, it is sitting right next to my window and getting pretty good light. So I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's the temperature change because it's cooler now, but I got it in the middle of the summer, I believe. I got it in the middle of the summer and it was still pretty warm. All the way, it only really cooled down like a month and a half ago. So a lot more of these leaves came out months ago. So I don't know why I'm getting very little variegation, but for that reason, it is not worth my hype. Also, I spent a pretty coin on this plant, over $100. It's going for about $70 to $80 now. Granted, the ones that I've seen going for that price from the same seller, I believe, they seem smaller, but still, I paid over $100. It's not really giving enough. I could have got a Tycon. Like, I could have got a Tycon. Of course, I would have possibly lost it to spontaneous rot, but, you know, I don't know. I just don't know. I'm not, you know, I know it's not worth my hype. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed. That was really hard for me to share because I really like that plant. Anywho, definitely let me know in the comments below what you guys think about these plants that I've listed, or are there plants that I haven't mentioned that you think are hype that are not, or are worth the hype maybe? Let me know, because maybe I need to know about them, because maybe I need them in my collection. But I have a video that I talk about underrated plants, or plants that are not popular but I think they should be. You can watch it here.